Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Nitro Racing League. We've had a couple of off weeks, but we're here now for the final four elimination race. Four drivers will be fighting for a championship at the end of today's episode at Talladega Superspeedway. We are already locked into the final four with a win, but you can see Matt O'Brien, or Karma, the owner of Nitro, is 7 points out below Mahu in the 14 coming into this race. So our goal is simple: help our teammate of Matt beat that 14 of Mahu by 7 points throughout the whole race here in Talladega and get him into the final four along with us at Homestead Miami Speedway. So we get underway here at Talladega. This is a 95 lap race. Stage 1 is 25 laps. Stage 2 is as well 25 laps, which will complete when we complete lap 50, and then we race it, of course, to the end of lap 95 as we had a spin through turns 1 from the 41 car on the very first corner. No caution, that was just a single car incident, and I was like, oh god, please don't let that set the tone for how this race is going to go here in Talladega. Now, super speedway racing in the Nitro Racing League has its ups and downs, and I can tell you that this episode, and you'll see what I mean towards the end, this might be the lowest point for the Nitro Racing League I've ever seen in my career in this league. So I'll have some strong opinions at the end of this episode when we get to that point in time when it comes down to talk about what happened on track. So here we were early on, now trying to get connected with the 19. Like I said, my only goal was to push the 19 to the race victory, basically. I wasn't having any intention of winning this race unless I was up front and Matt found himself towards the back or something. So we decided, you know what, it's really early on in the race. Let's see if we can make the top lane work here as we go down this back straightaway. And we, sure enough, would make the top lane work. So we were already able to prove to ourselves that we could make this top work if we needed to maybe use it as a last resort later in the race, like we did in Daytona at the beginning of the season, and we were able to get Matt the Daytona 500 victory. So we would go up to the top 2, and that was it for the majority of stage 1. We cut straight through to lap 18, and we were still running 1-2, but we also had pit stops coming here on lap 19. I was hoping to go to maybe 20, 21, but Matt being out in front all stage long, he had to come in a little bit earlier. So on the exit of turns 4 on lap 19, Matt, myself, and a few others like Andrew Wisdom are all going to come into the pit lane. Unfortunately, though, I go a little bit too hot into the pit lane. So does Andrew. Both of us speed. Matt does not speed. He gets onto the pit lane fine, so we had to serve our penalty. Matt was out back on the track already and looking in good shape to compete for a stage victory. I was just hanging on to the end of the stage, bringing it home at this point, probably scrolling through Twitter a few times as well. Now, as we came through straight to the final lap, coming across the line in stage 1, thank goodness, Matt still won stage 1. We crossed the line in P10, so we got back into the pit lane, went to the choose cone, chose the top, which ended up being the wrong call because the top got really stacked up there. A horrendous restart there on the top line. So now, here we were in P13 alongside Jay. Now, as we got Matt Chaffee behind us, this was actually Jay's first race back in quite some time. He decided to pull out of the Nitro Racing League earlier this season after a lot of frustrations with Ford drivers in specific, and you might see that boil over a little bit in today's episode with the Ford drivers and him. Now, as we came through to lap 30, up the inside of the 95 and the 14 of Mahu. Mahu, right now, after stage 1, I think he was 5 or 6 points still to the good above Matt O'Brien. So it was getting really interesting here as we were actually able to make the outside work a little bit again with some trouble on the inside line, and all of a sudden we were back into the top 5 as Matt in the 19 still leading the way. So as of right now, everything was going to plan, and then all of a sudden games started to get played a little bit here. The cars behind us were trying to back it up to build up a huge run to get in front of Matt, and I was backing it up with them so that way I could be kind of that kind of foundation to keep them back. So it was working out for the time being, but I made a mistake right here. I hit the back of the 2 car, and it actually shot me up into the outside line. So all of a sudden here we are under attack from the 14, from the 2, as well as a 21, and then everybody's going to be able to pretty much go by here on the inside. So just hitting the back of that 2 car in the wrong spot really messed us over, as you can tell here as we go down this back straightaways. Now we're barely hanging on to a top 10 position. Now they're 4 wide in front of us with the 14, the 95, the 12. They were making contact everywhere. They ended up saving it, thank goodness. The action was definitely starting to pick up a little bit here. Still quite early. We're not even halfway actually through this race, so I was surprised to see the intensity level among some of these drivers picking up so quickly. So now to the end of lap 41, there was a crash in the very back of the pack that brought out the first crash caution on the day. Now with the choose cone rule, I was able to get all the way up to the front row after the pit stops alongside our teammate of Matt. So I didn't really think this was going to work out for us very well on the top top, and I can confirm it definitely didn't work out right off the bat here, as I would lose a good chunk of time to Matt, but I had enough of a push through turns 3 from the 41 car that I would actually be able to get back into second place here in front of our teammate of Jonathan. So I dropped down behind Matt, and then the goal was to push him to the end of the stage, which comes to an end at the end of lap 50. But unfortunately, Jonathan would actually jump up to the top and then lose his hole there on the inside to the 14 of Mahu. Now, as we would fortunately though be able to keep Matt out in front to the final lap of stage 2, and Mahu would stay down in 3rd place. So we were coming through to the line to push Matt to the stage victory. Now at this point, there was, I think, 1 or 2 points I remember separating those two for that final 4 position going into this 3rd and final stage. So there was a lot on the line, but with how Mahu's been doing in these stages, Matt was looking at in the 19 that pretty much he has to still win this race. So the goal was once again to push him. So we made the top work at the start of stage 3 on the restart. Again, we actually got clear down the back straightaway of Smoke GT in the 2 car, and I was actually trying to get connected with Matt in the 19 because he got shuffled out 3 wide in the middle. So I actually decided to run the Dale Earnhardt Jr. line here through turns 3 and 4, and I was hoping people were going to abandon me, but they actually went with me instead. So eventually though, the inside would start to prevail here now, as we were 3 wide for a brief moment behind us. But like I said, I'm just trying to focus on getting connected with the 19. Now there was a little bit of contact in front of us there between the 9 of Andrew Wisdom and the 2 of Smoke GT. Then I got hit in the left rear by the 12, so I get forced out, and then I decided, you know what, I don't want any part of this. I'm backing right out of this disaster that's waiting to happen. And now we go down the back straightaway. We got a car lagging there in the 21 of Blake, and then fortunately that would get solved pretty quickly. But then on lap 56 into turn 3, there was cars going everywhere here as we're 4 wide into the corner. Once again, I said, nope, I am out of this now, as they're actually going to start crashing right in front of us. We're involved in the first big accident on the day here in Talladega. Fortunately, we didn't go around, which means we don't have to go to the back of the field due to being a part of that incident. So we would be able to come down to the pit lane once again, do the choose cone. We were on the outside, and the outside, if you're in the midfield, it definitely does not work because these guys could not get fired off here on the top. So at this point, though, it was getting close to crunch time, you could call it. We were closing in on the final 35 laps of this race, which still means there is 1 more pit stop to do under caution, under green flag conditions. Didn't know what was going to happen yet. We've had 2 cautions recently, so definitely could be a final pit stop ending up happening under caution. So unfortunately, right now, Matt in the 19 had gotten shuffled back, but then there was a bit of a moment there with the 12, the 14 of Mahu, and he goes backwards. So at this point in time, now Matt is in the final 4. Mahu is out. So we were trying to actually make the outside work with Matt, and it wasn't working, and then the 14 got back in front of Mahu. So Mahu now is in the final 4 again, or remaining into the final 4, I should say here. But now as we came through to lap 65, I'm just trying to do my best to stick with that 19 at this point now, as it gets a little bit crazy again in front of us. They're going to go 4 wide through the trial, but once again, I said I do not want any part of this, so I'm just going to let you guys do your thing, settle it out here, and we'll see what happens. So now I get up the inside of the 88, and fortunately, we're going to actually be behind that 19 still of Matt in P7, and then once again, I try to follow him here to the outside, and we're going to try and make something work, but nothing really was working at this point. Here's now actually a huge moment on the inside. The 10 of Matt Chaffee, who was leading the race, had a leg spike, checked up every single car on the inside, so all of a sudden, we've been gifted a position at the front with Matt and his sissies in second. That was because Matt Chaffee was still on the track, and he had just appeared out of nowhere right there in front of us. All of a sudden, he's back on the track leading the race, so he actually pulls over, realizing what happened. At this point, though, he was fine, so he really could have stayed there, but a very unfortunate situation all around that benefited everybody that was on the top. So we got cycled down into 4th place, and now we're just hanging on because we had some more pit stops coming here on lap 77 for the final pit stops on the day. Crucial that we do not speed. The 73 of Jay was actually having wheel issues and ended up speeding, and then myself and Matt, though, we fortunately did not speed. So now it's a race between myself, Matt, and Mahu out of the pit lane here. It's going to be crucial to stay in front of that 14. So we get out behind Matt, but myself and Mahu are inside each other. I know it's crucial to stay in front of that 14. He's trying to pull left and get to my inside so he can unghost and get around me. I said, not happening. So I made sure I actually intentionally put myself inside his car so we could remain inside him and then eventually get in front of him like that right there. Now, just over 10 laps to go in this race. It's myself, Matt, and Mahu behind us, and right now, Matt's in the final 4, Mahu is out, but this is where everything starts to change basically in this race. So a lapped car of the 12 of Cameron would join the party here, so all of a sudden there's more Fords in the mix, or actually it's 2 and 2, I should say. 2 Toyotas, 2 Fords. But like I said, everything would start to change from this moment on. We would catch the 21 of Blake, who would decide to not get out of the way as a lapped car, and then now I would get caught off guard here. So now all of a sudden, a whole bunch of games start getting played here by the Fords, and obviously myself and Matt realize that we got to do the same thing, because we just had 2 lap cars to take the initiative to actually try and alter the playoff Final Four battle. So it gets really, I guess you could say, nasty from here. Now to 5 laps to go. I realize the only opportunity Matt has to win this race is if I pull as many cars back as possible from him. So I'm over here side drafting as much as I possibly can on the 21 of Blake, and I'm actually running into the side of him a little bit, just doing everything I can to hold him back, because I know that if it's 3 cars like this behind Matt, they're going to just go around him and push the 14 to the victory. So I was doing everything I can right here, side drafting as hard as I could. I got up alongside the 12. We were now just 3 laps to go in this race. Things were starting to get out of control. We have 2 lap cars trying to affect the championship 4 battle, and then it gets even worse. So here, down the back straightaway, the 14 makes a move to the outside. I get lucky right here and get clear of the 21, so now I have a chance to help Matt as they're battling for the lead. They make contact, but now Mahu gets clear and then actually decides to brake check the 19 of Matt on the inside, including myself, to allow the 12 to get out in front of him to protect him. So all of a sudden we got brake checking happening, and I would have been completely embarrassing myself if I did that. This is where I started to draw the line and realize that all 5 of us right here in the mix are just complete idiots at this point now. So we come through to 2 laps to go. It's a side-by-side battle. I'm just doing whatever I can to help the 19 of Matt, trying to push him forward. There's contact happening everywhere. Ford's doing everything they can to push the 14 to the win, as well as now you can see up ahead, it's not over yet. There's another car in the distance. It's a Toyota. I'm slamming the 21. Everyone's hitting each other. I'm just doing what I saw Matt, I should say, hit the 14, so I was like, you know what, I might as well hit the 21 and see if I can help him out now. So at this whole final 2 laps, I was extremely embarrassed, in all 5 of us. I couldn't believe what was happening right here. Now as we came through to the final lap of this race, Mahu now being pushed to victory by the 12 car of Cameron now, but up ahead you can see Jay in the 73, now a Toyota driver, by the way. Now as we push Matt down the back straightaway, nothing else we can do except accept our fate. At this point, we couldn't get the job done. Mahu is going to advance into the final 4, and Matt is going to get eliminated. He makes a move to the inside of the 12 and the 21. Not enough he can do though here as we come through. I'm slamming the 21 on purpose. The 73 of Jay throws a huge block on the 14. I get put into the wall, and Jay has affected the finish of this race, because now Matt is going to go through and take the race victory over Mahu, who got blocked by Jay. For the race victory, we finished 3rd place, and Matt wins, eliminating Mahu. It wasn't over. There was a lot of drama, as you can imagine, about what just happened in that finish. So immediately after the race, Jay ends up getting suspended for 2 races, and he is no longer eligible for the playoffs next season. The non-playoff eligible thing, I think, is a little bit too far, personally, but I think the 2 race suspension is okay. I think he should be eligible for the playoffs next season. Has nothing to do with this season. Honestly, I think every car in that battle right there in the 5-car group we had should have gotten some form of penalty, because we had the 14 intentionally brake check us to get himself behind the 12, and then we had 2 lap cars deciding that they wanted to alter the playoff battle, and then you had myself, of course, intentionally running into people, trying to pull them backwards, and then I think Matt was probably the only innocent one out of it. What ends up happening, though, is instead of a final 4, we have a final 5. It is Jeff Gordon all over again in 2013. Mahu has been put into the final 5 due to losing that race right at the end in the events that happened with Jay throwing a huge block. In my opinion, I think this is the right way to go, because it would have been a little bit wrong, but at the same time everybody had wronged each other right in the final few laps of that race. And like I said, all 5 drivers right there, part of that, should be embarrassing themselves, including myself. It was an embarrassment to the Nitro Racing League, a huge low point, and I am definitely not sure if I'm going to be returning to Nitro next season. I should mention that now. Next episode, where we compete for a championship, might be my final race in the Nitro Racing League. It just feels like at some points now, lately, it gets taken a little bit too seriously, and we saw it shine through right there. At the end of the day, it's just a video game where we're trying to have some fun. So interesting to say the least. Let me know what you thought of all the events that happened at the end of that race. There was a lot to dive into, but nonetheless, thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch this episode, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.